So here we are discussing the topic oogenesis. Already in previous period we discussed what is oogenesis. The process of formation of mature female gamete, that is called ovum. The process known as oogenesis. Okay, and we discussed the steps that occurs in oogenesis. In oogenesis, from the oogonia cells, it having the chromosome 46. That means it is a diploid condition. That oogonia cells undergoes mitotic divisions and form the primary oocyte. So the primary oocyte also having the chromosome number 46. This primary oocyte undergoes meiotic division, first meiotic division, and form secondary oocyte. Secondary oocyte and when one polar body. Okay, so here the number of chromosome is 23 because the primary oocytes undergoes reduction division. Reduction division means meiosis. Each primary oocyte gets surrounded by a layer of granulosa cells and it is known as primary follicle. Okay, a large number of these follicles degenerate during the phase from birth to puberty. So at the puberty only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are left in each ovary. The primary follicles are surrounded by more layers of granulosa cells and form a new theca that is known as secondary follicles. The secondary follicle further transform into a tertiary follicle which is characterized by a fluid filled cavity. The cavity is known as antrum. The theca layer is organized into outer theca externa and the inner theca interna. The primary oocyte within the tertiary follicle grows in size and completes the first meiotic division. It is an it is an unequal division. The secondary oocyte retains bulk of nutrient-rich cytoplasm of the primary oocyte. The mature tertiary follicle further grows in size and to form the Graafian follicle. So here the primary follicle get converted into secondary follicle, then into tertiary follicle, and mature one is known as Graafian follicle. And with a large central follicular cavity that is known as antrum. And the fluid inside it is known as liquor of follicle. The lining of the follicular cavity is a membrane granulosa and a thick mass of cells attaching the primary oocyte to the follicular wall is called as cumulus oophorus or discus proligerus. Okay, so the Graafian follicle contains the liquor that is known as liquor folliculae and discovered by a follicular wall that is known as cumulus oophorus or discus proligerus. I send you one animation. On the animation it is clearly discussing the discus proligerus. The secondary oocyte forms a new perforated membrane called zona pellucida. It is made up of glycoprotein. Okay. Next to the zona pellucida layer, discus proligerus cells are arranged in a radial manner. These cells are known as corona radiata. Okay, so the secondary oocyte cells, the covered by zona radiata near zona pellucida. Near to the zona pellucida, and another layer is there. That layer is known as corona radiata. The Graafian follicle ruptures and to release secondary oocyte from the ovary by the process known as ovulation. So the releases of ovum, the process known as ovulation. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle promptly filled with blood, forming a corpus hemorrhagicum. The granulosa and the theca cells of follicle begin to proliferate, forming a yellowish solid mass of cells called corpus luteum, which secretes the hormone progesterone. Again I am repeating, the Graafian follicle now ruptures to release the secondary oocyte from the ovary by the process known as ovulation. After ovulation, a ruptured follicle promptly filled with the blood, forming a corpus hemorrhagicum. The granulosa and the theca cells of the follicle begins to proliferate, forming a yellowish solid mass of cells that is known as corpus luteum. This corpus luteum secrete female hormone progesterone. If pregnancy occurs, the corpus luteum persists. If there is no pregnancy, the corpus luteum degenerates and laying a whitish scar tissue that is known as corpus albicans. So each month our ovary or the uterus is preparing for receiving a baby. Okay, in endometrium make a bed for receiving a baby. If pregnancy does not occur, the corpus luteum persists. If there is no pregnancy, the corpus luteum degenerates. Okay, and leaving a whitish scar tissue. The name of the tissue is corpus albicans. Okay. Hope all you can understand the topic oogenesis. This is the differences between spermatogenesis and the oogenesis. So it is very important. Spermatogenesis takes place in testes. Meiosis begins at puberty to produce sperms. Okay, it is a continuous process. Males are not born with all the sperms they will ever produce. Polar bodies are not formed. No yolk is synthesized. One primary spermatocyte produces 4 sperms. Spermatozoa produced are minute, yolkless and motile. And here oogenesis, that it takes place in ovary. Meiosis begins before birth in female. It is a discontinuous process. Females are born with all eggs ever produced. 2 to 3 polar bodies are formed. Yolk is synthesized by vitellogenesis. One primary oocyte produces only by ovum. Ova produced are much larger, often with yolk and non-motile. The same material, things that I read here. The first one is spermatogenesis that occurs only in the testes. Oogenesis that occurs in the ovary. Okay, spermatogenesis there occur equal division of cells. And oogenesis there occurs unequal division of cytoplasm. Then germline epithelium, it is involved in gamete production in case of the spermatogenesis, but in oogenesis there is no involvement of the germline epithelium. In spermatogenesis the numbers produced that is 4. In oogenesis only 1 and the others are the polar body. The sperm size is smaller than the spermatocyte and the ova is larger than the oocytes. Okay, then spermatogenesis is an uninterrupted process. There is no discontinuation of this process, but oogenesis is an arrested stages. The spermatogenesis process begins at puberty, but oogenesis begins in fetus. And the spermatogenesis is continuous and the oogenesis is monthly from puberty. That is known as menstrual cycle. Next class we are discussing what is menstrual cycle. Then spermatogenesis is a lifelong process, but oogenesis is a terminates with the menopause. So these are the features of the differences between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. It is very important, so study it well properly. Clear?